What does the Montessori philosophy mean for you?
Repetitions of a particular exercise can you do today, and what is your hope? The idea of how to use, we would say the brain is, they frankly don't care what you think. In fact, that's
Today in Raising Innovators, we have a very special guest, somebody that has devoted his entire career and life to a philosophy that he learned and he still practices up till this day. He's an author, a consultant, and the president of the Montessori Society. Let's welcome Tim Seldin to Raising Innovators.
It's
what
my
an
pleasure.
honor to have you.
Thank you.
There's so many questions about the Montessori philosophy to unpack. But let's start in a nutshell. What does the Montessori philosophy mean for you?
Well, first off, Montessori means different things to different people. You introduced me as the president of the Montessori Society, and in reality, there's more than 400 Montessori societies around the world. So this is the largest system of education on the planet. The largest private non-governmental school in the world is in Lucknow, India. It's a Montessori school called the City Montessori School, 48,000 students. Wow. So Montessori is an approach to, first off, education. That's what it's most famous for. That works from birth through the 12th grade. There is a Montessori University in Sarasota, Florida, Sarasota University. But it's also being used with dementia patients. It's being used with orphanages. You can do this anywhere in the world. One of my books is called The Montessori Way. Another is called Montessori for Every Family. And in that, we try to describe not only how people use it in schools with different ages, but how you can use it in your home, how you can use it in your family life, how you can use it in business. In fact, if you Google the words Montessori Mafia, you'll come up with about 40,000 articles on how Montessori influenced major world figures in the business world, from Peter Drucker's to Jeff Bezos, the Google guys, all sorts of people. And it's a way of doing business as well as of educating children.
Wow, this is fascinating. A lot to unpack. So let's start. How does a day in a Montessori classroom look like, and how is it different from traditional education?
Well, the first thing is it's going to look different at different ages. Montessori is based on the idea of trying to understand the child and putting the child at the center, and the adults are there to support the child instead of the adult being the center of attention. So what we do is we engineer an environment that is designed in accordance with now more than 120 years of research about children that looks at, first off, what do we have in common that cuts across socioeconomic classes and culture around the world. In other words, what makes us human? And one of the things we know is that the brain is capable of amazing things, that children will grow up within the culture in which they're raised, but that the brain develops according to what it's exposed to. So what we're very deliberately trying to do is to create an environment that works with human nature instead of ignoring it. We approach children with humility, assuming that they'll show us, not us showing them, but that we'll try to design an environment in which they can reveal to us who they are, what they're ready for, what they're interested in. And a big part of what makes Montessori work is the idea of independence, of agency, of helping the child to feel that this environment is, first off, drop dead gorgeous. I mean, it should be timelessly beautiful. It should be incredibly well organized. It should have no plastic, no junk, no toys. In fact, it's the opposite of play-based education, which doesn't mean that we don't think children play. It's that we don't think they need any help with fantasy. They don't need help with play. They got that down. It's just human nature. What we're trying to do is help children to feel powerful. We're trying to help children feel capable. We're trying to teach children how to do it for themselves. So the most basic Montessori catchphrase that most people have heard of is follow the child. Allow the child to reveal herself, recognize the child isn't going to be something someday when she grows up. she's somebody right now. And if you treat children with the most profound respect, as if they're already 35, 45, and if you help them learn how to do it for themselves and feel very grown up, and if you're trying to help them develop order, concentration, the ability to resist temptation, and not simply do things to make you happy or impress their parents, but to satisfy their own inner need, you really are helping them to learn how to learn. And the argument is, if you watch babies, I mean, babies obviously respond to the human face, the human voice, but they'll learn to walk, they'll learn to crawl, they'll learn to sit up, they'll learn to talk. If they're exposed, if they're allowed to, they will develop according to a hidden plan that's sort of hardwired into human nature. Now, that doesn't mean that children are all the same. They aren't. Every single person is a universe of one. And that's more complex than our simplistic image of children being auditory learners versus kinesthetic versus visual. I mean, children are real people from conception, certainly at birth. And what we're trying to do is to create an incredibly calm, orderly environment designed to help them to not need us to tell them what to do every minute.
So that sense of agency. And in Montessori, there's no classroom, no textbook. How explain us how that works in a world of standardized testing where kids are expected to perform at a certain level by certain grades?
Oh, don't get me started. I mean, first off, I think that whole concept of the way we test children is a great way of making money for really big multinational companies. It's a way of convincing parents that a home in a particular neighborhood is worth more because the test scores are higher. It has really very little to do with long-term knowledge and long-term learning. In fact, it's really scary that we still put so much reliance on the SATs, which is not an invalid test, don't get me wrong, but there is not a direct correlation between a high SAT score and predictability about who a child is going to be in university or in later life. In fact, most people will say that I never really learned much until I was out of school and in the real world. What we're trying to do is take advantage of the way human nature works and the fact that young children are capable of absolutely amazing things if we only go with the current. In other words, if you try to swim in a river upstream against a current, you're going to drown. You're going to get exhausted very quickly. If you try to swim directly across the river, you're going to end up downstream. The current's going to push you. Instead, if you're in the Scouts or if you're in a good swimming program, they teach you how to swim without getting exhausted, using the current to help you get from one side to the other. We argue, let's work with human nature instead of ignoring it. And so every single thing in Montessori has been carefully worked out through trial and error in tens and tens and tens of thousands of schools and classrooms all over the world. And again, the common thing is we don't ask teachers to walk into the profession and create lessons from scratch. That's a way to exhaust teachers. Instead, every single Montessori teacher is taught first, how do you be present with children and learn to listen to them, to talk to them, to relate to them, to observe them in such a way that you really begin to know them as individual human beings. Again, every single person, young or old, is a real person, and they're all a universe of one. And if you stop thinking about how one child compares to another child, and instead think of it from the point of view of a wellness center. If you are in a personal wellness education program, let's say as an adult woman, You look at how many repetitions of a particular exercise can you do today, and what is your hope, and how do we teach you how to use the equipment safely? Because we're teaching you how to be on an individual journey, and hopefully to feel no shame, no embarrassment about comparing your body against someone else's. You're not in any competition unless you want to be in competition. But the idea of enjoying your education, of enjoying your life. So Montessori is it's a very happy kind of school. It's the kind of school that most people who, when they really, really discover it, they're angry with their parents that they weren't sent to a Montessori school. It's the kind of school that most people who become Montessori teachers say, I never understood mathematics or geometry or geography or the structure of language or history. They learn things as when they become teachers that they never learned in school.
Right. So they learn, I love the sense of agency of the child, but how do the teacher component here is very, even if they're passive, but there's a progression for children to learn in a certain sequence of things. So how does Montessori philosophy address this? How does a teacher help them move from knowing this and tailor that lesson plan or experience to the level of a child?
Marnie, the ideal situation in Montessori is we come into relationship with the child and the family as close to birth as possible. We don't do that because the family needs to work, although we certainly respect the families often need to work, and we're not ashamed to be family friendly. So many Montessori schools run year-round. They're open early, they're open late. But the idea is you're creating a children's community. The second thing is what you're trying to do with a child is first and foremost teach her how to make her body work. So the idea of how to use, we would say the brain is created by the hand. We want to teach the child how to feed herself, how to use a knife correctly, how to walk across the room without falling, how to carry things on a tray, how to pour liquids. In other words, all the myriads of everyday tasks, the bathroom, the brushing, everything so that she does not need adults to do it for her. Secondly, a good example of this would be if you were a young mom today and you have a 3-year-old, you take the bottom shelf of the refrigerator and you structure it so that your young 3-year-old can make her own snack herself, can pour her own liquids, and instead of giving her a plastic sippy cup that she could throw across the room and it would never break and it'll never break down, don't get me started on microplastics and what they're doing. But the idea is we would give them a shot glass, because if you're a toddler, a shot glass is the same size to a toddler as a regular glass is to an adult. And if you drop it, it will shatter. And so what we're deliberately doing is teaching them to be aware of their bodies, to be conscious, and to do things with deliberation. And they will drop. They will make mistakes. And so instead of shame and fixing it for them, we say, okay, Marnie, let me show you how to clean that up safely. So we're teaching them how to do it themselves. That's number one. Number two, we don't do what we regard as stupid things, like this is the letter A. A stands for apple. A says ah. If we're teaching you a letter, what we're going to do is say, this is an ah. And we don't ever teach you the name of the letter. You'll learn that. But we would simply say, this is an ah. Now, obviously, that's useless if you're not already hearing the word, the sound. So we're speaking very carefully. We're using a very sophisticated vocabulary. So Montessori child will usually be able to tell you a group of lions is called a pride. A group of geese is called a gaggle. A female goose is called, male is called the gander. In other words, they have a vocabulary that's normally 10 to 20 times larger than the average child of the same age. And that's only because they're exposed to it. They're also exposed to, instead of puzzles of little teddy bears and things, they're exposed to puzzles that represent things like all the different forms of triangles. And they're taught this is a right scaling triangle. This is an equilateral triangle. Or this is a map of Europe set up as a puzzle. This is Italy. Your grandma comes from Italy. So we're teaching them how to use their hands to carry things across the room. We're teaching them how to compose. Children in Montessori learn to write usually 6 months before they can read.
Oh, wow.
They can compose words because they know what they sound like. They have learned this symbol represents that sound. And so if you say to them, can you spell Tyrannosaurus Rex? They can sound it out. They learn to, and they don't start off with all 26 letters of language. We start off with 3. And when they've got 3 down, then we go to 4 and so forth. And then once they've got all 26, we start with the phonograms, because there's 96 digraphs in the English language, like all the different ways OUGH can be pronounced in English. We teach that step by step by step. The end result is you've got a curriculum where reading and mathematics are not core curriculum at all. They're keys. They're enabling skills. What we're really teaching is architecture and geometry and philosophy and poetry and logic and grammar. I mean, they're learning things like my 4-year-old daughter, Michelle, when she was a little girl. I remember saying to me, if we go up in a satellite, if we go up in a balloon and we look at the Chesapeake Bay, are you telling me it really looks like this picture of what you say is the Chesapeake Bay taken from space? I said, yeah, this is what it looks like. Where my other daughter, about the same age, said to me, Dad, do you think the dinosaurs died because of a disease or because an asteroid hit the planet Earth and threw dirt up in the sky? In other words, we have a saying, never give a child the right answer. Ask the right questions and teach them to think deeply and ask, how do I know for sure that this is real?
So let's unpack the teacher component first, because the training for a Montessori teacher takes thousands of hours.
About 1,500 hours.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot in an industry that in reality is facing a very turnover problem. That leads us to, how does a parent know that they're actually enrolling in a true Montessori or Montessori-Inspired program?
Well, first off, a Montessori-Inspired program can be a great school, but it's going to be a very different thing from a fully implemented Montessori school. So I think, to me, I don't worry too much about this, even though I am a Montessori fanatic. To me, what I want to know is, as a mom, are you happy? If you feel that you've chosen a school that makes your child happy, if you're happy, I don't really care whether it's a fully implemented Montessori school. If you ask me as a friend, is there going to be a difference between a fully implemented Montessori and a sort of Montessori-inspired school, it's going to be night and day different. On the other hand, let's think about what they're likely to have in commonality. There are so many approaches to education these days that are what I would call child honoring. When Montessori started, school was about shame. It was about blame. It was about comparison. In fact, the word graduate and even the idea of class ranking the word graduate means to put things in rank order. Are you the first in your class? And there used to be a board game in America called Go to the Head of the Class. So the idea is, who's the dummy in the room?
Yeah.
What we would argue is every child is learning. Every child is growing. They're learning more from each other than from you. And that's one of the hardest things for most educators to accept. They learn dirty jokes from each other. They learn superheroes from each other. They learn hairstyles. They learn about bands from each other. Kids learn beautifully without adults needing to prepare a lesson. So what we're trying to do is to, again, work with human nature. But what we're trying to do is give kids the good stuff, not pablum. They're going to get pablum too. Yeah. They're going to see plenty of children's cartoons and stuff that really is fantasy. But what we want to do is teach them about things that have to do with reality, that have to do with, shall we say, the building blocks of our culture, how the government works, how money works, the countries of the world, religions of the world, everything that has to do with how humans work. And that includes everything from dog breeds to horse breeds to hairstyles to, for example, the clothing you're wearing. It was all made by someone. There's a logic to it. There's a cost to it. Your hairstyle, the makeup you're wearing, there's a history behind this. We want kids to be incredibly culturally. So going back to your basic question, a school that is child honoring, like Reggio, Emilia, or a Sudbury school, or a free school, or really any school that sees children as human beings and puts them in the center. I believe they're our brothers and sisters. They're fellow travelers. Yeah. So there are a lot of people today that are interested in Montessori. They don't have the time or money to invest in a full Montessori classroom for every group of children. They don't have the money to invest in the teacher training. And so what they want to do is they pick and choose. They're going to come up with a cockamamie version of it. But on the other hand, any of it's good. So I would say that what I see most people doing is they'll use workbooks or they use computer programs, they'll use tablets, whatever, to teach kids to read, math, whatever. And it's fine, except to me, it's abstraction. Yeah. Anything that's two-dimensional kids don't really understand it. They just memorize it. In fact, if I asked you, did you once upon a time know how to multiply fractions?
No, yeah, I understand the point. Hands-on learning.
Yeah, in other words, I want a kid to be able to teach another kid or teach me how to do it. Many kids know the right answer. They don't really understand it. So you don't have to know everything in this world, but the more you know, the more likely you are to learn more new things. And one of the reasons why the world's wealthiest people choose Montessori is these kids are taught to think deeply. They're taught to think outside of the box. So they're innovators. That's why they call it the Montessori Mafia. These are the kids who come up with new answers, and they tend to think about others. And in this world where so many people are insecure, where so many people are living a kind of a dog-eat-dog life, Montessori kids are taught how to earn trust, build friendships, be kind, be people who think for themselves. They frankly don't care what you think. In fact, that's one of the hardest things. In the 1920s, when my mother was becoming a Montessori educator in New York, there used to be the Montessori Mothers of Manhattan, and they had a saying, takes a brave woman to raise a Montessori child. So these kids are not the kind of kids who will go to public kindergarten and understand why a PA will come on every 15 minutes and say, Marnie, please come to the office, or why they would do active shooter drills, or why they have to raise their hand to go to the bathroom. And I remember one kid in a Montessori middle school, in a public school setting, saying to his teacher, why do the teachers in the non-Montessori program within our building not like their students? So this is a place where kids feel like they're honored, they're respected, and the level of learning is so much more sophisticated than most children will ever get in an American school. I mean, it's really, a waiter in Rome is generally better educated than most people with a college degree in America. And it's just the way things are outside the U.S. We're the only country in the world that teaches math the way we teach math. The average kid knows more geometry, biology, chemistry. It doesn't mean everyone in Moldova is really all that culturally literate, but they generally are better educated. And we're just trying to teach kids that you can learn things and you can really respect people that are not like you, people that work with their hands, because that's the building block of our society, is people who
absolutely
do things.
Well, I want to thank you for introducing us to this beautiful and powerful and time-tested philosophy, the Montessori philosophy, and for walking our audience through what makes the Montessori philosophy so unique and how they can spot a true Montessori school from the rest. Thank you so much for the honor and privilege of having you in this show. And if you like this, please like and subscribe.